and thank you for joining us today for the AIM Women's Mortgage Network's Growth Series. This series is here to educate, inspire, and share your progress as we lift each other up to new levels. On today's show, we have with us Larry Levine. He is the author of Selling from the Heart. I actually started listening to Larry's podcast that's also called Selling from the Heart last year. And I was drawn to it because he gets right to the root of business, which is strong relationships. And as women, we all know that relationships is a core competency for us. And I'm sure all of you are going to be shaking your heads, yes, as we dive into Larry's thoughts and teaching. In a world of empty suits, Larry is passionate about helping team members become valuable before they become visible. Larry, thank you so much for being here with us today.
I'm super excited. This is awesome.
All right, let's dive right in here. Larry, on your podcast, you always start by asking your guests, what does selling from the heart mean to you? So I actually want to flip that script. I want to hear from your perspective. What does selling from the heart mean to you?
Oh, so now you're throwing me on the hot seat, huh? I'm a big believer in this, that selling from the heart means bringing the best version of yourself forward, Laura. It means with full intention, bring in sincerity, bring in substance, bring in heart to your clients and prospects. And this means that in order to bring the best version of ourselves forward, we have to look inward. And I always say this, that the inner work, the inner heart work, Laura, is sometimes the hardest work. And what's really interesting, in order to sell with the heart, you have to have a healthy heart. And that healthy heart is, what we do internally, and that's the self-awareness, the self-care that we bring forward. Because when I work with people, and even when I was out in the field, I had to bring the best version of myself forward because I knew the good times were going to be good and the bad times were going to be bad. And I wanted to let people know that I had their best interest at heart. First and foremost, I was there for them. I cared about them. And I use this term, just give a rip. Selling from the heart's giving a rip, and it's caring immensely about the person that's in that office. It's caring immensely about helping them solve business problems and challenges. And it's never, ever, ever breaking your promise.
Right. Absolutely. And, in our business, in the mortgage business, obviously, I actually recently read an article, and this article said that going through the mortgage process is one of the 10 most stressful events a person can actually go through in their life. Like a lot of people, immediately when you hear the word mortgage, people get a little, what does that mean? My goodness, I'm borrowing all this money. It's the biggest thing I will ever do in my life in terms of the biggest amount of money I will ever owe. And being relational, and especially as women, being relational with our partners and families that we're helping, how do you encourage and what are your recommendations to continue to grow those relationships and be able to assist that family through that scary time of the uncertainty of going through the mortgage process?
Well, it's interesting because as I was listening to what you're saying, the first couple words that popped into my head was empathy and sympathy.
Right.
And we have to be able to empathize with them. We have to sympathize. And there's two slight differences is, we can say, hey, I understand what you're going through because I remember back when. I remember that very first time I bought my house, or I remember helping, my close family members through buying their house. I understand what you're going through. And at least putting them at ease that way. The other thing is then we talk about relational aspects. I'm a firm believer that we have to understand what that relationship really is, Laura, which means we have to ask, what's a relationship look like to you? How would you like me to grow and nurture our relationship? What would that happen? What would that look like? How would that happen? You see where I'm going?
Okay, so let's dive a little bit into that.
Yeah.
Let me understand that. And I totally agree with you about the empathy and sympathy. And I even personally, when I did my first mortgage myself, I was 25 years old, and I remember I had one of the worst experiences of my life. And I can recall that once I started being in the mortgage business, I'll never forget that feeling. I'll never forget the day the loan officer called me the day of closing and said, "Yeah, I know you were supposed to bring this much to closing, but it's actually like $9,000 more because we added an additional point to your loan." Now, thank goodness there's rules and regulations
Yeah.
in the world now that something like that doesn't happen. But I remember that feeling of almost being taken advantage of, and that keeps me whole now, all these years later. So tell me a little bit about, how do you keep that in your mind, and how do you use it to continue to grow the relationships with the families that we're looking to help?
I think it goes back to, well, actually a couple things. I'm a big believer in capturing memories and experiences.
Okay.
So one way that we can keep that going is to uncover, right? I'm a big believer in this, regardless of what people sell, we capture memories and experiences. Now let's think about this in the mortgage world. Those are great things that you can capture to retell, repurpose, reconnect, right? The RE words that are going to slowly come after that is, I'm a big believer that we're story collectors. Some of the best storytellers are story collectors. So if we can capture how somebody felt and package that up into a nice bottle and redeliver that, that's step one. The other thing is we must always be craving feedback. I'm always asking and encouraging my clients for feedback. How's the relationship looking like? What value can I continue bringing? How have I helped you do better business? How is, maybe in the relation to your world, how is what I've done? How is the me holding your hand? How has that made you feel? What words would you use to describe the process that I've taken you on? What's that journey been like? And capturing those, just asking a different set of questions and engaging in a different manner. And what's really interesting is I'm probably more female than male because I grew up with all sisters and most of my cousins were all female. So I connected the female aspect of relationships. And I truly care when I ask questions of people. I truly care what those responses are because I really want to know.
Right.
And I think in order to really build those deep relationships, we have to be able to ask. And sometimes it's those uncomfortable questions that are really going to help you become more comfortable with somebody as you're building those relationships.
Right. And listen, relationships don't form in one phone call or in a few emails, right? I mean, a relationship is something you work on. And even when you think you have a good relationship, you have to continue to work on it, right? It's like anything, you can't assume that just because, let's again, relating it back to the mortgage business, just because you did a great job of bringing Mr. and Mrs. Smith home for that first home that they purchased, well, we know there's going to be opportunities where maybe we can lower their interest rate. Maybe Johnny and Billy are going off to college and it's time to do a cash out refinance to be able to help them pay for college. Or Johnny or Billy are now looking to buy their first home, and now we're helping the next generation. I mean, so that relationship, you're correct. It's not just the first time that you help them. It's being that advisor throughout their entire lives, and then the next generations. I mean, we said it, right? Bringing those memories, being that person that we know, we see that the news puts up, across the 6 o'clock news, interest rates are the lowest that they've been. Well, who am I calling? Am I calling the person that I have this relationship, my trusted advisor that says to me, well, the Levine family, yes, the rates are low. But you know what? Right now, this is the best situation for you. Or absolutely, Levine family, we should be reaching out to you before you ever see it on the 6 o'clock news. right? We should be ahead of that. That's part of that relationship. So what are some ideas of how to continue to keep that relationship fresh?
So it's interesting because the first word that comes to mind is be intentional.
Right.
We have to be intentional with the relationship, and we have to be proactive. So I'm a big believer that it's my responsibility. Now, this is my opinion, how my brain works, and what I brought to the forefront is we have to be proactive and serve in our relationships, which means I go first.
Got it.
Which means I have to always be bringing new insight, right? I have to be educating my clients. I have to be building and nurturing that relationship. I have to become that research and development department for that person or that company, which means I have to constantly be looking out for their best interests. And it's hard to do this if you fail to stay top of mind and communicate with your clients. And so I always try to put myself in their shoes, right? And sometimes, life gets in the way, and all of a sudden I haven't, spoken with someone for a while. Well, that's my responsibility to keep that going. So I think the biggest thing is to be intentional, be there to educate, lead with insight. If you see something that can benefit them, drop them an article, reach out and make that phone call, send them a message. Connect with them on social, listen to what they're doing on social, interact with what they're communicating about. And you'll be amazed what starts to happen. But it's what's really interesting about this is when we come to relationships is it requires work, but it requires you going first. That's part of being a servant.
I love that mentality. It is true, is that you're not waiting, like we said, the 6 o'clock news. We're not waiting for them to see something on social media saying that the rates are dropping and then they reach out. It's like you said, it's having that servant leadership, your own servant leadership, to where you're looking out for their best interests and you're being their advisor, right? I mean, listen, in sales, we all speak pipeline, right? Our goal is to always have a full pipeline. Okay. So the way that we have that pipeline that will continually be there for us during all different stages of whatever's going on in the world, whatever outside forces are happening, right? I mean, in our world, we speak about, okay, inventories are low. There's not a lot of homes on the market, but the interest rates are very low. So it's giving opportunity for maybe people can afford a home that maybe they couldn't afford a year ago, but now they have more buying power, right? We have to pay attention to that. We have to see that maybe this young couple that, sure, their price range was X a year ago, but guess what? The rates went down. Now it's Y. Now they have this opportunity, or maybe it's better if they get into a fixer-upper, and they do a renovation type loan where they can modify it and make it their dream home in the future. But like to your point, if you're not watching the people that you've served, you're constantly chasing. You're constantly just trying to fill that pipeline with new people that you literally are starting at square one relationship, where the previous people, you've already established it. But you're correct. In our minds, sometimes we think we always have to be out looking for new relationships. But if we continue to water and grow those relationships we previously had, we could be doing both at the same time. So let's actually speak about that. Tell me about that.
And you bring up I absolutely love what you're saying, because I have this saying, and it'll play out with sales and relationships, is if you fail to invest, you'll never be able to collect.
Correct.
So so I'm a big believer that we have to deposit into the emotional bank accounts of our clients in order to reap the benefits. So you brought up, I'll bring up sales funnel, right? Or sales management, how you manage your funnels. I always say this: if you want to have an ever-flowing sales funnel, you have to have an ever-flowing relationship funnel, which means business is personal. I've come to that realization a long time ago. Business is personal. Your best source of new business comes directly through how well you build, nurture, and grow relationships with your current clients. I always say it, they're the keys to your new growth. They're the engine behind your new growth. But in order for that to happen, you have to place them. I'm just using these descriptive words. We have to place our clients up on a silver business platter. We have to nurture and grow those relationships. We have to become relational bridge connectors. In other words, we have to build connections and communities based on caring and compassion. And if we do that and always crave feedback, they will take care of us. I always tell people, your best source of help are your current clients. But it's the stories in our head are the stories that we tell and act out. I can't ask Laura for ... I don't know what she's going to say. Well, if you ask not, you get not, right?
That is true.
So I always say, we have to be willing to make those deposits every single day in our relationship bank accounts. And if you do that with determination, with discipline, with consistency, things play out.
Yeah, and you brought up a good point. When you say, I can't ask Larry, what will he think of me? But to be quite honest, when you're connected and you have a relationship with Laura and Larry, it's not asking for something out of the ordinary. It's just having a conversation with someone that you look up to. You've put them on a silver platter. You have a relationship with them. So there's nothing out of the ordinary. The only time things are awkward is when you're not in a relationship. If you don't have that connection, then all of a sudden it's like, who does Larry think he is asking me?
And that happens all the time. But you bring up a great point, because that happens all the time. And I want to use the connection word that you just mentioned. Is I think today it's never been as easy as it is right now to connect with anybody.
Agree.
But it's ever so difficult to truly connect.
Okay.
Stop and think about that one for a second. It's never been as easy as it is to connect with somebody as it is right now. But it's been ever so difficult to truly connect. Because in order to truly connect with somebody, you have to bring intention to the forefront. You got to bring care. You got to bring compassion. But all too often, too many people just connect and they move on. Yep. Or they think they have a relationship with somebody, but then what are you doing to invest in that relationship?
That's right.
And it's hard to build a relationship if you don't communicate, if you don't engage in conversation. And that's why I go back to saying this about business is personal. So if you allow me, I want to use a quick example. It'd be like if you're in a marriage or you're in a relationship with a significant other. If you don't invest in that relationship gets soured. We become complacent, right? It's hard, right? I'm happily married for 28, almost 29 years. And I know what happens if I don't communicate with my wife. If I don't build a relationship with my wife, we know what happens. The same thing can be said with your clients. We have to be intentional. We have to be proactive. We have to build those relationships, and we can't take advantage of them. Our clients are our best source.
You have to be a little vulnerable too.
Yes.
You also have to open up your heart a little. And I want to share something to my women out there, okay? A lot of times women in business, sales, right? Because if we have our own companies, we're in sales, right? That's what we're doing. So entrepreneurs out there, ladies, a lot of times we mirror the men that we've seen sell because of the fact that that's what we've seen. That's what we kind of grew up seeing. That's what we've watched people do. But ladies, I will say this over and over again. We have a huge advantage because of our ability to form strong relationships. So don't try to be like what you've seen other people do. Be true to your heart. Open yourself up a little bit. Allow that relationship to open up and be that advisor. And Larry mentioned it about create the stories. We have the honor and privilege of every day being the people that put people in their homes, they will never forget us, ever. And if we continue to have that relationship with them and check in with them and see how the family's doing and stay connected, your pipeline will forever grow, because you'll have your past clients and your new clients, and you'll have those strong relationships. So you're 100%, Larry, about the connection. We have that ability, and I know you women out there are doing fantastic right now, and you want to continue to plant those seeds for the future, because we all know cycles change. We all know that right now the rates are really low and things are booming, but cycles change. And we know that as those cycles change, we need to be prepared for the next cycle, which means building those relationships and continuing to have them for the future. Absolutely. That is great. All right. So Larry, what's your final piece of advice to all the ladies out there?
I would encourage the ladies out there to really understand, go back to your customers, go back to your clients, ask them, what could I do to be even of more value to you? What could I do to help? What words would you describe about me? What words would you use to describe the support I've been providing to you? I encourage you, pick up the phone, thank your customers for doing business with you. I appreciate the fact that I've helped you do, and then you can fill in the blank. Find something new about a customer that you didn't know and pick up the phone and just say, thank you. I didn't realize this. Ask them, what's it like? What's it like for you to do business with me? What's it been like? Ask those sometimes uncomfortable questions, and you'll get some really interesting answers that will, I promise you this, you'll learn something, and it'll help you even grow and cement that relationship even more.
Awesome. Wonderful. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Larry, for joining us. We truly appreciate it, and continue to spread your message of selling from the heart, because it certainly is an important one.
I will. Thanks, Laura.
Awesome. All right. It is that time when we get into our challenge. So this is where we ask our audience to step outside of their comfort zones and stretch to success. This week, we would like to know how you are going to implement a social media and digital strategy that will help deepen relationships. We want to hear from you. Okay, so email me at laura@afrwholesale.com and tell me what you're going to implement. And then remember, we're going to select 3 Women's Mortgage Network members that completed the challenge to come on our Facebook Live the week of June 15th. Okay, so wishing you all an amazing week. And on next week's episode, we are actually going to have 4 Women's Mortgage Network members come on and going to discuss how Dr. Meg's everything is negotiable practices were implemented into their professional and personal lives. So can't wait to hear how everybody is now taking our guests' information and implementing it into their business and personal lives. Okay, everyone, be well, be inspired, and never stop growing. Be well, everybody.